Every few years, a map goes viral. It shows cargo ships sailing straight over the top of the world, across the Arctic, cutting the distance between Asia and Europe by nearly half. The story is always the same. The ice is melting. A new shortcut is opening. And Asia, the workshop of the world, will finally break free from the crowded, dangerous sea lanes it leans on today. It is a powerful story. It is also the wrong one. Because a shorter route is not the same as a freer one. The Arctic Passage everyone calls a shortcut runs along a single country's coastline under a single country's control. And that country is Russia. So the real question was never when the ice would melt. It is who owns the water underneath and what Asia gives up to use it. To see why Asia is tempted, start with the fear it is trying to escape. Look at how China is fed. Roughly 80% of the crude oil China imports passes through one narrow gap, the Strait of Malacca between Malaysia and Indonesia. At its tightest, it is under 3 kilometers wide. Almost every barrel threads through that needle. In 2003, China's leader Hu Jintao gave the problem a name, the Malacca Dilemma. The danger is simple. The strait is dominated by the United States Navy. In a serious crisis, Washington would not need to invade China. It would only need to close a door. For 20 years, China has hunted for a way out. Pipelines through Myanmar, through Central Asia, through Russia. And the Arctic looks like the biggest exit of all. And on paper, the Arctic delivers. The route is called the Northern Sea Route, the NSR, and it hugs the top of Russia, linking the Pacific to Europe over the pole. The numbers are striking. From northern Europe to China, the traditional path through the Suez Canal runs about 21,000 kilometers. Over the Arctic, it is closer to 13,000, nearly 40% shorter, and 10 to 15 days faster. A voyage that takes 40 to 50 days the old way can be done in under 20, and the timing feels perfect. Two of Asia's lifelines are under strain. The Suez Canal has been throttled by attacks in the Red Sea, with container traffic there falling by as much as 3/4. Malacca sits under American guns. Against that backdrop, an icy road across the roof of the world starts to look less like a curiosity and more like a solution. But here is what the viral map leaves out. The Northern Sea Route is not open water. It is a corridor and it has a gatekeeper. Every part of it, the access, the safety, the shipping, is controlled by one Russian state company, Rosatom. To sail it, you do not simply set a course. You apply for a permit. In 2024 alone, Russia issued more than 1,300 of them. For much of the year, the ice is still too thick to cross alone, so ships must be escorted by icebreakers. And Russia holds the only fleet of nuclear-powered icebreakers on Earth. The fees for that escort are set by Russian regulators. Think about what that means. This is not a canal anyone can pay to cross, like Suez or Panama. It is a private road, and the country that owns it decides who drives, when, and at what price. For a long time, that road led almost nowhere. Then, in 2022, everything changed. When Russia invaded Ukraine, the West cut it off. Its oil and gas, once sold mostly to Europe, needed a new buyer. Fast. Within a year, Russian crude flowing to northern Europe fell essentially to zero. And it went east. By 2024, China and India had raised their purchases of Russian crude by more than half, even as Europe slashed its imports by nearly 3/4. Arctic gas followed the same path. Tankers from the giant Yamal project turned toward Asia, and Russia climbed to become the third largest supplier of liquefied natural gas, LNG, to China. This is the key turn. Russia is not opening the Arctic for the world. It is building a corridor aimed squarely at Asian buyers, at the exact moment it has nowhere else to sell. Dependence is not a side effect. It is the plan. And China is buying in. Literally. It calls itself a near-Arctic state and folds the route into its Belt and Road as the Polar Silk Road. Chinese shipping lines have begun running containers across the top of Russia, and in late 2025, the largest container ship ever to make the crossing completed the trip. Supporters call this diversification a smart hedge against Malacca and Suez. But look closely at what actually changes. Today, China's great vulnerability is a choke point watched by the United States. Tomorrow, its alternative is a choke point owned by Russia. The strait does not disappear. It moves. Asia does not escape its dependence on a single narrow passage guarded by a great power. It simply changes which great power holds the key. One landlord is traded for another, and the new one has every reason to keep his tenant close. So, will the Arctic route change Asian trade? Almost certainly. But not the way the viral map promises. It will not be a free and open shortcut that sets Asia loose. For now, it carries only a tiny fraction of what moves through Suez, most of it Russian oil and gas, across a season that can still shrink to a few open weeks. The revolution is slower and stranger than the headlines suggest. What is really being built is not just a trade route. It is a relationship, one that binds the world's biggest exporter of energy to one of its biggest importers, along a road only one of them controls. The wrong question was when the ice would melt. The right question is who will own the water when it does. The Arctic is not erasing Asia's choke point. It is quietly moving it from a strait watched by America to a passage owned by Russia.